Welcome to What's New in Windows 365 in the service release 2304. And Donna, we are going to look at some very exciting things this month. And actually, I really look forward to the last demo you're going to show us today.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think that Microsoft have been doing lots of work in this release, and I really look forward to share this with the viewers of this video.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. The product group has been very hard at work at bringing new features, as we do every month. There's some really cool stuff here that we've released within this 2304. Some good admin experience, some really cool end user experience, some cost saving, flexibility options, even documentation. So there's lots to cover, but it's all very valuable and all still very important to the growth of Windows 365 and making sure that admins and end users love our service. So I'm pretty proud.
Yeah, it's a really cool product. But first of all, Donna, we were at MMS, right? And
yes, we were.
Was the first time we actually met in person, and it was really, really nice to see you.
It was a lot of fun, and it was awesome to meet you in person. I mean, that's one of the really awesome things with MMS is, if you get involved in the community and you're doing the social media thing, sure, you can have conversations all day long, but it's totally different to be able to see somebody, give them a hug, go have a beer, and be able to build that camaraderie in person. It's such a valuable conference, at least for networking, or not even just networking. There's all the content to learn from. There's the fun to be had, but if you've never been and you're on the fence, just do it. You're gonna have an awesome time. Also, if you have wanting to try to step up in the community, speaker, you can always put in for a speaker session. We're always looking for good new blood to enter in. So it's not just all of those old timers prattling on about the same old topic. So go ahead and put your name in the hat.
Exactly. There's plenty of play and space in MMS, and that was my first time, and I really loved the format. The conversational kind of way to have sessions with attendees was really nice.
That's one of the gripes you usually get from folks that don't attend is, why can't I see the slide decks? Why aren't there recordings? Well, for a very good reason. One, it keeps it intimate, and it helps to develop more of a trust. And two, you can be a little bit more open about things as a PM. Not that we're cracking open the entire NDA playbook and showing everything that's going behind the scenes, but you can have more of an honest conversation and have to be a little less curated. So that's the value in there. Plus, getting to actually meet product group members. So if you're working on Intune, or you're working on some facet, let's say Windows 365, you could have met myself and Christian Brinkoff, who are a PM on the team as well. So that's one of the huge values that MMS brings. But that's why we don't do the sharing, because it almost spoils, or I guess maybe it wouldn't make the in-person experience nearly as rich and interactive.
No, it could easily spoil whatever MMS is today. So I completely agree. And one thing I also want to just touch upon, I had this customer. I had a 1-week hackathon. So our goal was we have Citrix Cloud today with a Azure Virtual Desktop in the backend. So Citrix is our way in. And then working with Azure Virtual Desktop as the virtual layer of a desktop. So our goal was to say, how fast can we spin up a new device to make it ready for the user? And what can we then use it for? So during that week, the purpose was like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. The showcase was we could restore to a restore point if we got infected with malware or other stuff not working on a cloud PC. we could easily spin up a device, just assigning the license and a provisioning policy and a user policy, and then you're right. You're going. You just provision in 25 minutes, and you are able to work again. And the conditional access side of things, we configured with a strong authentication, phishing resistance. So you had to use a FIDO2 key on your private device to actually get to your Windows 365. So all the way through, we actually had a case where we were much faster, we were much more modernized, we were much more standardized, and that was totally a game changer for us. So really, really nice hackathon. And I shared all this with Christian as well, and also some feature requests. So
Good,
let's
we
see
love
if they
those.
come into the product. That would be nice, at least.
Here's hoping.
Yes. And now all of a sudden, everything. Okay, my screen's back. Everything went black. Okay, good.
I think I'm good.
We should get going.
We probably should.
Absolutely. The first thing we are going to look at is in an area called documentation. So we have a new documentation article, relative performance for different cloud sizes, right?
Yes.
What is it?
So what we're trying to help admins figure out with this document is what size cloud PC do you want to go with, and how to do some, how to do testing against cloud PCs. I know in the early days, we had some folks who were trying, downloading benchmarking tools from here and there. They run it on their laptop and then run it on the cloud PC and go, oh, well, look, this is so different. Why? Well, as a SaaS service, we're stating what we're providing, which is CPU, RAM, and storage. Nothing more granular. That gives us the flexibility to be a SaaS service and provide, stable quality cloud PCs. And over the course of the product, the life cycle, there's been demand back and forth between how do we test these, how do we benchmark, how do we know what we're actually getting the correct sizing. So that's really what the point of this document is to help admins make that decision of what SKU are we going to. And then also there's a section in there as well for what happens when we choose the wrong size, which honestly that happens quite a lot. I think most of the customers that I've run into when we first started were going on the low side, which if you're just doing Word, Excel, it's probably okay. But as you start adding in, you layer on Teams, or you layer on other video, or you start compiling code, or you start throwing more complex workloads on there, you can kind of start to see the lag. So we also have some documentation in there to help admins understand how they can resize cloud PCs to fit their end users' needs.
Cool stuff, Donna. Cool stuff.
I think so.
Yeah, it's really, really good with some recommendations from Microsoft in order to how should I provision that, and which type of licenses do I need to buy, et cetera, et cetera. Because actually, when you're provisioning a Windows 365, right, what you do is you buy a license, and that has these kind of CPU, RAM, and disk in it, and then you assign that to the user, right? So it's a good idea to know upfront what you're going to assign to a user.
Absolutely.
So, makes perfect fit. I really want to hand this out when I have a meeting with customers and say, yeah, what do you need? Look at this document, and you should be able to determine what you need. Really, really good, Donna. Let's go on to the next topic, which is Windows 365 government. And in here we have government with custom images and Azure network connections. And what is the news about this?
So really what we're doing with that one, it's not so much a new bells or whistles or new features. Really, it's providing better guidance in how to use the custom images and the ANCs. It's being explicit on certain requirements. Our government clouds are a little more regulated, I think is probably the correct term.
Mm,
So what we're doing here is, for admins that want to use the custom images or build out ANCs, we're providing more clear, I guess, clear instructions on the requirements and what needs to be done in order to leverage those particular features. So nothing groundbreaking, no new fancy buttons, but better information and better guidance to admins is always appreciated, and to help our
absolutely.
admins be able to do their job and be successful.
Absolutely. If I learn something, go to the docs, and then you know what's supported, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
the better the docs we have, the better the guidance the user will have, the better the products will become, because you hit the right the first time, so you don't have to hit and miss, and then you have to go back and stuff like that. So this is really good.
Agreed.
Small stuff, but really good in the
Mm-hmm.
end. Yeah. Perfect. Let's go forward on provisioning. So
Okay.
there was this actually also in this hackathon. We had a one of the people in the group were actually living in South Africa.
Okay.
So when I saw this message and I saw that Windows 365 was coming to the Azure region in South Africa, I was just, come on, we had this question: where do we provision this device? Because we wanted the best performance for him when he connected to his Windows 365, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up in West Europe. We did some testing on a site where you can see how is your milliseconds delay to the regions, Azure regions. I guess it's not it's better than nothing, but we got the result West Europe. So when I saw the South African North, I was like, let's do it. Let's deprovision his device and let's give him this new region. So this is really cool, and also in Sweden I see, and I can see your list that you're showing right now. That's it's
E
becoming longer and longer and longer.
It is, and you'll love to see it. So here's our newest members to the supported region for Windows 365. We've got Sweden and we have South Africa. I know South Africa has been a big ask from the internal sellers, so there really wasn't anything even remotely close to uh, the country of South Africa from a supported region perspective. So that in and of itself is absolutely huge. So very happy that one's there. Sweden, we're just moving across the European continent, adding in our support for data centers. All very good stuff. We really like to have regions as close to where the end user is going to be, or in some of these cases, it's more of a data sovereignty issue from a regulatory and compliance perspective. So for both are very important, and I'm happy to see these new sites get lit up. That just makes it easier for folks to start provisioning cloud PCs.
Absolutely, and this is just important to say. If there is a Azure region, it's not the same as there is a Windows 365 in that region. So you have
Correct.
to go look at this documentation, or you could also do what, Donna?
You could go ahead and, if you wanted to go ahead and just kind of dork around in provisioning policies. If you're familiar with Windows 365 provisioning, this is your provisioning policy. It's your first page of the wizard. And just for the sake of demonstration, you'll see I've chosen Azure AD Join and Microsoft Hosted. So what we can do is we can start with the geography, and we will get a list of essentially countries. Um, U.S. Central, U.S. East, and West. They're not really countries; it's part of the whole. But generally speaking, there's that, and there's European Union. So, like in the case of East U.S., we could go here, and then what you'll see is you're going to allow the second option is for automatic. And what that's going to do is it will actually choose on your behalf which region makes the most sense. And there's various variables that are in play on the back end that go into account to determine really which one's better. If you don't have a specific need to be in a very specific region, I'd recommend letting the service pick, because it has a much better insight as to what's going on behind the scenes. But what's also really neat too with that is you can, if we go ahead and look at the EU, if you don't really, have a data sovereignty issue, you could let it, pick one. But if you do need to have that sovereignty, you can actually go ahead and select there. So it's one of those, little quality of life things from the admin, just to make sure that wherever we're provisioning, you're going to get the best that you need to have. But of course, if you do need to, pick a specific region, you absolutely can.
Mm. That's super nice.
Mhm.
So, if I'm not mistaken, there's some data in endpoint analytics as well for the connection between your PC, and the cloud PC. Is
There
is
are.
that is that the term they call round trip?
I think that is the correct terminology. Yes.
Yeah. So you can actually go in and you can measure on how is the connection from the end user to the cloud PC, so you can actually see that you get a good result or a bad result, so you can
Hmm.
mitigate that. So that's pretty cool.
I think so.
So now you have the geography, and you have also the a region where you can choose recommended, and then Microsoft is going to make the best choice for us.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super nice, Donna. Thank you for that
You're
clarifying.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right. So from new regions, Donna, to a end user experience, and the first one we're going to look at is or not look at, because we will do that later. But the first we are going to talk about is the location redirection.
All right. Well, let me show you what that kind of looks like. So the backstory behind this is, if you've been on Windows before, you'll see, if you haven't disabled it, you'll get the little local weather icon, or you can get local recommendations based off of how you're browsing and what you're clicking on. And that's really based off of your, traditionally it's based off of your local IP address, and there's some figuring out that goes behind the scenes, but it gets you pretty close. So at least your weather is accurate, your local news is accurate. But when you're using a cloud PC, your local IP address really isn't taken in that consideration. So when you're browsing in your cloud PC, in my case, it says that I'm in Virginia, and I can attest that I am nowhere even close to that state. So what location redirection does is it will pass the local data to the cloud PC and then spoof that. So as you're browsing or looking at things that would have an interest or need location-based data, the cloud PC can provide that, so your overall end user experience is much more akin to working on on your local device, as opposed to connected to some region somewhere.
Mm,
And we can see that at work too. So on the web browser here, I'm going to go ahead and do an open in browser, and we're chugging, and then we can see over here we now have location in preview. So
nice.
I'm going to go ahead and enable that, and I'm going to go ahead and hit connect. And then once we connect to the cloud PC, oh yeah, since I don't have single sign-on on this test box, I got to do my second prompt, but we should get, haha, right there.
Mm, so that's what it is. Yeah, okay.
So, but you also need to make sure too that you have policies allowing this to function. So I can hit the allow, and then we get the other reminder up here. Make sure location services are enabled in your location privacy settings. So make sure
Mm,
that the policy is set to so the data flows correctly. But then your little 70 mostly cloudy should actually work.
nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you type I must not say this, but if you went to the browser and you type Google, for example, I've seen on some of my cloud PCs that when they are in West Europe, they go to the Netherlands, for example. And there you go. It actually works.
Well, and in my case, though, since I'm not crossing any international borders, it's still always going to show in English for me. But point still absolutely stands.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool, Donna, and I like that that little feature that makes the small things.
They add up. They really do.
They add up. It does. It really does. Yeah, and from one user experience to another one, you just showed us what is that all about. I really love it to do that when I browse in Intune. That is the dark mode. The dark mode is it's so nice.
I've gotten used to it. Anytime I'm forced to work in light mode, it's just like nails on the chalkboard.
It's too bright
for me. It is.
It is.
But where end users should be able to find this within the browser experience is up on the little gear for the settings, and they should just have the slider. And
nice.
they can watch it go on, off, on, off. Again, just this small quality of life stuff.
It is.
But it's those little bells and whistles that make it really do make an overall impactful end user experience. Just those little niceties, those creature comforts.
Absolutely, and that's what I love about this product, because you really do go into the nitty-gritty stuff and you make it happen. So that's a kudos from here. So what happens if you hover over some of the cloud PCs here? Because I've seen some very ugly stuff. Okay, it's not going to be white, or it's just working. It's really nice. I've seen some very ugly stuff in the Intune portal when we go into dark mode, but it seems like this is pretty solid.
It seems very consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. Super nice. I'm going to do this on my own as well.
Good job, product team.
Yeah, good job, product team. So thank you so much. From one user experience to the other, there's this Windows 365 app. We haven't seen it yet, but because you are in the browser, right?
I'm using the browser, correct.
Also another experience for the user, right?
Yeah, so there is and I don't think I have this set up correctly, so I'm going to cross my fingers. And, as much as I love to be a cheerleader, I don't use the app yet.
Okay.
Because for me, there's a feature that's on its way, is the granular multi-monitor control. Because right now, in the GA or the current version, you can either do all or one monitor. I run 4, like 2 cloud PC, 2 physical PC, and I just can't pull that off. So I'm still using legacy remote desktop connection. But once that hits, I'm moving over, because there's some really cool stuff coming from from the app. Let's see. Let's see if this will let me log in.
So what I'm curious to see is that when you have multiple Windows 365 instances and you want this quick access to one of them, it's nice, right? Because then you would be able to pin that cloud PC to your taskbar.
Yeah, so I think I got this thing screwed up when we were still in an internal self-host. And I think we had to do some registry hacking or something, just because we were in in an internal release candidate. It wasn't out in GA. So honestly, I think I broke my app. But the point of pin to taskbar is where we're at today. If you wanted to connect it, you need to go find the app, go ahead and open it up, then you go ahead and connect, and then authenticate, and you go into the process. But by pinning it to the taskbar, all the end user needs to do is click that once. Boom, they get their logon prompt. Boom, their cloud PC. So it's a much quicker connection time. It's less steps for the end user. It's a much less jarring experience. They don't necessarily have to open an app to connect to. So it really is more of a good quality of life then. There you go.
And look at this, right?
Yep.
I actually got it here.
Yeah, and you can see the icon is a little bit different. It has a little cloud on there versus the window panes, so you can visually differentiate if you happen to have the app pinned.
Yeah, and I have something going on. I don't have the rights anymore on my Windows 365, so I have to figure that out. But I think my license is out of date. But nevertheless, we saw how to pin from the Windows 365 app. So I think that's super nice, actually. Super useful for a user like me, because then I don't have to go open up the Windows 365 app. I can just click on my pin, my taskbar, and then yeah, up it goes. Super nice. And Donna, the last one of the user experience is the web client keyboard shortcut redirection.
Sure.
Let me just tell you about a use case where I'm currently working for a customer where we have another product, which is not Windows 365, God forbid, but nevertheless, when I click Alt Tab, I want to click around within that virtual machine. It switches on my host, and that's really, really frustrating. It would be nice if I have the focus inside the cloud PC that I was actually able to make the shortcuts that I'm using every day on my regular PC. So what can you tell me about this client keyboard shortcut?
So in here we have shortcuts available that can help to mimic the redirection. So, like on my cloud PC now, I'm here, and even if I go to let's do a full screen. If I do an Alt Tab, it's opened up on a different screen. And by releasing that, now it's kicked me back here. So what we have the ability here is for end users to be able to trigger those types of actions that they normally would in their cloud PC without getting back to their desktop. So again, it's just those little features, but if you needed to hit the Windows key, all right, you got Alt F3. You want an Alt Tab, okay, you got Alt Page Up. And so that's going to allow end users to do is to be, if they're using the web browser, allow them to be more productive. And it's also nice too that if they ever need to remember where it is, they can just go to the gear and boom, it's right there.
Absolutely. Super nice. I really hope that I had that in my cloud PC experience, but yeah, I have to go to Windows 365 to get that. But super nice. Really happy to see that. Yeah. Completely new area. We are going to shift from end-user experience to device management.
Okay.
So we have a really, really nice announcement to show and a really nice demo as well. That is the Frontline. Tell us about the Frontline.
Okay, Frontline is freaking cool. I've been on the virtual team for this since last year, so I've seen some very early evolutions, and as not even as a Microsoft employee, just as a Microsoft fangirl, I have been all my life to actually be able to watch something get developed and even have my just one of my fingerprints attached to it. It's just so cool. So I tend to get really excited and geeky about this. So that all being said, Frontline aims to bring additional functionality that is not currently available today in Windows 365 Enterprise. And that is for shared scenarios. Now, before I go any further, I want to make it explicitly clear, because there's a lot of confusion around when you say shared and VDI, you think multi-session. You're thinking, like an AVD or like a Citrix, and that is 100% not the case. Cloud PCs are not shared. by design. What we are sharing is the license. So whereas today with Windows 365, one user gets one license, they get one cloud PC. If you're using Frontline, 3 users can share one license, and they all have 3 individual assigned persistent desktops. So there's no noisy neighbors. There's nobody eating up all of the resources on the host. There's no FSLogix profile management because it's a dedicated computer. Who is this for? Shift work. If you have call centers that are doing follow the sun models, you can have that's a fantastic use case. Shared PCs, kiosk stations. It even has a little niche for IT, where with enterprise you can't necessarily make one user have 2 of the same sized cloud PCs on with different provisioning profiles. You can absolutely do that with Frontline because of how licensing is managed. It freezes up in a sense. So I know I've had some customers that have built out multiple ANCs to cover different geos. They want to have a cloud PC for each. That way an admin can get on and do some diagnostics and poke around. Can't do that with enterprise, but you can absolutely do that with Frontline. So where the cost savings comes into play. Now, the final licensing hasn't been announced yet, so I can't share that because I don't really know the numbers, but it's going to be more expensive on a per license basis to the equivalent SKU size as it would with enterprise. But since you have 3 users going there, you're taking that more expensive price and cutting it into thirds. So your overall per user cost reduces. And so if you don't have users or if you have users that do not need the 24/7 functionality of enterprise, Frontline may just be for you. Or if it doesn't necessarily need to be an all or nothing. Again, with the whole better together, there's going to be use cases where Frontline makes sense, where enterprise makes sense, where AVD makes sense. So it's really bringing additional functionality and capabilities to the service, making admins' lives a little bit easier, saving a couple of bucks. Everybody likes to save money on licensing.
Absolutely.
And so how about we go ahead and kick off a little bit of a demo on this one. I'm going to go ahead and trash that provisioning policy. And so what I want to show
just
up...
a clarification, Donna. So
Yes.
Do I understand it correct that if you have a Frontline license, you actually have 3 virtual machines, or is it one and the same?
No,
3.
Yes, and I can absolutely show you how that works now, because I've to save sitting here for 25 minutes to watch Cloud PC's provision, I've already spun up. Now in my lab, I have 2 licenses, two Frontline licenses. So we can go into the old Cloud PC view, and let's go ahead and expand this. So I have committed 1 license, but I have 3 Frontline Cloud PCs, which is cool. And just to prove to I'm not making this up, you can see that there's the user individually, along with their actual devices. So we're not sharing the computers. These are not shared desktops. This is not multi-session. It's not AVD. Everybody gets their own cloud PC. There's no round robining. When that person gets their cloud PC, it's theirs until their license is removed and the system's deprovisioned. So much easier to manage than, say, multi-session. Doesn't mean it's better. Multi-session is still awesome. Love AVD for its scaling, for the granularity that you can get into. And if you have those skill sets and you know how to do that, AVD is awesome. It really is. I've worked with it for years before Windows 365. So I'm still rooting for that one too. But if you don't have that administrative experience, that VDI experience, the automation experience needed to be able to do spin up and spin downs and all of that stuff, Frontline is a great option, because you really just need to apply the licenses and the magic happens.
Nice.
So now that I've at least proved that I'm not doing any trickery, let me go ahead and show you how this actually works.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go into provisioning policies. And I'm going to go ahead and, I want to go into provisioning policies. I'm going to create a policy, and I'm going to call this demo. And I'm going to go ahead and here, and you can see, and you probably, if you're already using Windows 365, I'm sure you've seen this little radio button show up for Frontline. If not, that's here now, and that's how you start making the magic happen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Frontline. And I am going to, for the sake of deployment, because I know that if I do Azure AD and Microsoft hosted network, there's almost 100% chance of success. Versus if I start going down the A and C, okay, if I misconfigured it, okay, we might have an oopsie. Or if I go to hybrid, well, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with hybrid. Not saying you shouldn't do it, but it's just more complicated. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and do Azure AD. I'm going to do Microsoft hosted. Geography, I'm going to do US East because that's where I'm close to. I really don't care on the region, so I'm going to let Microsoft pick it for me. It's one less thing I got to figure out in a day. I'll even throw on the single sign-on experience, and I'm going to hit next. If you're familiar with Windows 365, this is the same image selection window. Mm-hmm. Do next. Configuration, language of region is the same. Cloud PC naming template, same as an enterprise. I'm just going to keep the default. But see, this is where you start to really differ. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to add a group. And so what I did earlier in my lab prep is I made 2 Azure AD groups, creatively named Frontline Group 1 and Frontline Group 2. Frontline Group 1 has the same members as Frontline Group 2. I want to have so many people in my demo lab. Frontline Group 1 was used to create those Frontline Cloud PCs that I showed earlier in the devices pane. So I'm going to go ahead and select Group 2. I'm going to select that. And now what's interesting, though, is it's going to ask you the cloud PC size. You never have this with Enterprise because the license is determined ahead of time based off of the license assignment. Whereas here, you can ingest multiple SKUs, and then you can determine which group is going to get what. So in this case, it's a little bit different from how Enterprise works, but it's not all that, it's not difficult. Now, I only have 1 license type SKU, so easy decision. But what's nice is it can tell us, here's the name of the group, and here's how many members are in there. So at least that way I know how many. And then when we go ahead and hit this drop down, we can see how many members we have in the group versus how many available licenses to provision those numbers of cloud PCs. So behind the scenes, I still have 1 free license, which equals 3 cloud PCs. And I have 3 members, so this will fit. So it kind of helps the admin guide to figure out if we need more licenses, do we have too many? It's a good visualization. That makes sense. Anyway, for the sake of the demonstration, actually, you know what I could do? I have any other? Well, I'm going to keep this moving, but I've got some experimentation to do behind the scenes. So I'm going to go ahead and pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick what I've got to work with. And I'm going to hit select. My other options are to remove. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And we can see there's our name, our type, blah, 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 blah. And we've got our grouping down here. And we're provisioning those type. And we can go ahead and hit create. And it's going to go ahead and build the provisioning policy. It's starting to kick off, and we should see them already starting to bake. Now,
come on. That was fast.
It is. Now, it's cool, though, because you remember we're Enterprise, you can't have 2 of the same size cloud PCs because of licensing. But here we go. There's 28128. 28128.
Absolutely.
So That's one of the things that really makes me geek out is, the ability to do this for IT, for IT staff that need to connect into various ANCs. Previously the solution was to build different user accounts for each scenario, where in this case you could give your IT, your in-house IT pro, their regular 24/7 cloud PC, and then the staff can share Frontline machines to connect into various different regions if that's something that they need to do.
I'm curious to see how it would react. So if I log on to the cloud PC called where the user is Donna,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're connected to that cloud PC, and then Amelia is going to connect to her PC,
Mm-hmm.
how is it going to do that? Is
Okay.
there any intelligence behind that saying
Yes.
you can't?
Yes, exactly. So since the license is shared, only one user can be using one license at a time. So if I'm logged in and Amelia comes in, Amelia is going to get a dialog box that say there are no resources available, try it again later. I don't remember the exact same text, so it's not quite that, but that's the gist of it. Is there's no license available for you to consume is essentially what that means. So one of the things that if you're implementing Frontline is you really want to keep an eye on your actual usage. If you're figuring that you've got 100 users, you can buy let's make it easy, about 120 users. So there's your 4 licenses. If everyone's shifts end very neatly, you can go ahead and you shouldn't run into that, but occasionally you will. Maybe somebody stays 10 minutes late. Okay, but they're still consuming a license. So we have a report built in. I'll show you that before we go ahead and close this off. That helps admins get the idea of how many licenses are being used concurrently over a course of days and time, so that you can actually see when consumption is going up, when consumption is going down. So it helps admins make that decision of, do I have enough, do I not have, or do I not have enough, or do I have too many?
That's super cool.
Mm-hmm. Now, what we've also done too, because if you've used a cloud PC or if you've done virtual, VDI, occasionally you may hit a disconnect of no fault of your own, network hiccup. We have a built-in grace period, and so when the user's disconnected, we don't immediately throw it back into the queue, because you don't want somebody to either have that or they get up, go get a cup of coffee, they come back, now they can't get back to their work. So we do have currently built in, we've got, I think it's about a 15-minute grace period after disconnection before we kick that back to the queue. We're looking at shortening that because we've gotten feedback from our private or our private and our public preview users that's a little bit long. So we're taking feedback on how we're making this work. So. But that at least helps the end user, because what ends up happening is when we disconnect from the cloud PC, we're actually powering it off behind the scenes, which is the explanation as to the end user experience of when I go to connect my Frontline cloud PC. Why does it take 2 minutes to connect? Because we're actually powering it up on the back end. We're improving that process. We really hope to get that down so that's seamless, looking at something akin to like a hibernate state. So user state can still be present and then just get powered back on. But again, we're still working on here on version 1, and we all know that Windows didn't hit peak perfection until version 3.1.1. So we've got a little bit of ramp up time before we hit our true level of excellence.
Absolutely.
So let me go ahead and show you what some of the end user experience looks like on this one.
And maybe just a little feedback. So feedback on, for example, when you have the remote desktop and feature for servers, for example, on-prem. So when I, as a third user, tries to actually log on to the server using RDP, it's showing me who is logged onto that server already. And then I can click on one of those usernames, and then it's going to notify those if they are still active, right? So then there's kind of a time down or timeout, something like saying, hey, if you do not respond on this in the next 30 seconds, you're going to be locked off and so forth. That could maybe be the solution to this.
Maybe, or something akin to that.
Yeah.
The only reason that one really works is because in that case you have multiple users sharing the same box. In this case, we don't. So who's using, who of all the active users that have a license do we want to go bug to kick off?
Yeah, I see the problem.
Right, and we're really working to improve that experience around license, max license consumption, because we don't want folks not being able to get in to do their work. I mean, that's that's not what we want to do. So any of that feedback is absolutely welcome. We've got our Windows 365 feedback portal. We've got the Windows 365 feedback webpage. If you're going to make a recommendation or a feature request on Frontline, just make sure you put Frontline in the heading so we know that it's Frontline specific. But still very good feedback, and
thank you.
You're very welcome. So I'm just going to go ahead and reuse my web browser here, and you can see that immediately there's a difference between my Frontline Cloud PC, because it's labeled as Frontline, versus my regular Cloud PC or my Enterprise, which is not labeled. So I'm going to go ahead and do an open in browser, and it's going to kick that over here. And see, I've got location preview already turned on. I'm going to go ahead and hit allow, and see you're going to get this warning. And you can tell it to don't show it again, but disconnect when finished. This is a signal to the backend service that you're done. So that way it can then do the grace period timeout just to make sure that you don't need to necessarily hop back in, and then it can add the license back to the pool of licenses so the next user can come in and log in. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And the little verbiage on here is this process may take a few minutes. That's true. 1 to 2, normal. If you're seeing, I think I had somebody in our on our webinar was saying it's taking up to 24 minutes to connect in.
Oh,
something's a little off. So 1 to 2, cool. You're getting that. Open up a ticket so that can be analyzed. I'm wondering, if that was somebody doing a hybrid and having, hundreds of legacy GPOs come down and beat it up, because that happens too.
Yeah, I heard of a customer that had around 900 GPOs on their Windows 365. They thought that was it wasn't too fast, the experience. So the the assessment told us that 900 GPOs. You might turn a little bit off there.
Folks, don't forklift your on-prem to the cloud, please and thank you.
No. And one feedback to this could be, could this, the startup time on the front line, could that go into endpoint analytics so we have that metric to actually look at?
It's not a bad idea. I'm not sure if it's doing that or not, because it is a cloud PC, and we're already looking at startup time. So that may actually be there natively. I don't know. The idea just hadn't occurred to me. So that's definitely worth poking around. If not, that's actually a fantastic feedback, and can enter that in as a feature.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've spent our 2 minutes, and now I'm at my cloud PC. So again, disconnect when you're finished. Teams is going to start up. I'm not using that. Turn the location services off. But I mean, it's a cloud PC. It's running apps. It's Windows. And from the end user experience, I mean, it's really no different than Enterprise, except for hey, remember to disconnect. If we're going to go ahead and do, we can do the disconnect. I've got restart because I'm actually a local admin. And so I'm fancy. I get the extra button. So to trigger a disconnect, you can close the browser. That works. You can go ahead. You can do initiate your disconnection. That works as well. But one of the other things you're going to want to consider is idle timeout. Because if I let this sit here in the browser and I'm not controlling idling, I could sit here and eat this license up for a long, long time. And so we've provided guidance in the docs on setting a settings catalog policy. And so it's a remote desktop services type policy. But what that essentially lets you do is say, after X amount of minutes of idle, disconnect, and we'll honor that, kick them out. So if this is something that you're going to start implementing, absolutely start working on, you'll want to look at that. The other big thing that came up during the private preview and has in the public as well is, well, what about updates? See, like with our enterprise, you're on there 24/7. So the experience is going to be the same. Hey, you need to restart, blank, blank, blank. You get your toast notifications or whatever, depending on how your admin's configured it. Since this is not designed to be 24/7, you don't want somebody logging in just to get the Windows update prompt. That's going to be a terrible end user experience, especially if you're looking at, well, it's going to be a terrible end user experience. So what we're doing, we've provided guidance on how to set up a specific Windows update ring and control the behavior and the notifications. So what should be essentially happening in the background is the while it's awake, Cloud PC says, oh, hey, I got updates. We're not going to notify the end user. No pop-ups. But when we go ahead and do the disconnect and it gets the shutdown signal from the service, they'll go ahead and install updates. So
that's clever.
So yeah, we do it behind the scenes. It's some sleight of hand. They're still getting patched, but it doesn't hit the end user.
No.
So I think that's pretty rad. Something that we've also just showed off. We did a webinar earlier this week, and we showed some early. No, it's not really early. It's coming. I don't remember if it's coming in GA or shortly thereafter, but we're actually looking at power on, power off options for the cloud, for Frontline Cloud PC. And that question would be, well, why? Okay, well, let's say you got a user that hasn't been in the office for a month and a half. Let's say they're on, if they're in America, they're working for a very, very generous company that lets them have more than 3 days of parental leave. So it's all off for a month and a half. So when they come back, now you got an unpatched system. Security, big no-no. So what that's going to allow you to do is to be able to trigger and wake the machine up so you can actually do some maintenance, have it pull policies and get updated and power it back off. So we've tried to, at least for this GA, try to hit all of the high points from a security and management perspective along the Windows updates while keeping in mind end user experience, trying to keep that as a paramount. I think we've done a pretty darn good job of they have. I've kind of mostly been in the back kind of cheering them on, but no, the devs and the PMs and all the folks that I've worked on this, I think have just done a fantastic job of bringing a world-class feature here. There's been a ton of excitement around this, around Frontline. I think this is going to be a huge hit.
I think so too. I've heard so many times that the license is too expensive, so that you are going to, now share between 3 users. It's, I guess that could possibly be one way to make users or companies buy into Windows 365. But from what I've seen from now, I really think that it makes sense to look at this service. Really makes sense.
It really does. Let me go ahead and show you. We were talking about the concurrency reports.
Oh, yeah.
And so mine doesn't have a lot to show because I use this for demos. They're powered on for maybe, 5 minutes. I shut it off. So I don't have a ton of really good data here, but you can see like on a day-by-day basis, I know my max concurrent connection because that's how many licenses I have, but how many were connected. And so we can get, we know what our limit. And so if we had, 30 licenses, okay, then we could have 90. And then you'd actually be able to see better ebbs and flows than just my 1 and 2. One thing I wanted to show you that we are working on, or just to be aware of if you've already if you've gotten Frontline trial licenses. Let's see, which account is this going to pick for me? All right. Hopefully there is no sensitive data. But what I want to show, though, is typically folks are going to see, okay, well, I bought licensing. Where's my licensing? And they go over licenses. And you go, okay, where is my... Oh, Frontline's not there. Where is it? Okay. It actually lives under your product. So this is a pretty common question we've had through both of the previews. That they can't find it. Well, it's because it actually lives here. You can see there it is. But see, here's the interesting thing too. If you find this kind of stuff geeky and fun, I do. You saw I built out 6 Frontline Cloud PCs for 3 different users. How many licenses were assigned? Because they're not directly assigned. They're just checked in and out. So that will always show 0. At least it will always show 0 for right now. But kind of just also showing some of the conceptuals of, it's not just a standard 1 user, 1 license, one PC type deployment. It's completely different. So
that's also good.
Frontline.
That's Frontline, and that's awesome. And Donna, I think we're going to make some demo on how to configure the disconnect as well, but not in this session.
No, we could do another session on, once we've hit GA. We could go ahead and revisit and do a how-to. Or what I could actually do is go write an old-fashioned blog post on MSEndpointMgr.com like I used to do. Although honestly, but it's actually much funner and easier to talk to you than actually sit out and write out very in-depth articles. So
absolutely, just show it on the screen and it's already documented. So Donna, this was really nice. This is the first time I see Frontline live, so this was also very, very, very learning experience for me. So thank you very much for demoing this. And
you're very welcome.
So just back to say thank you so much for viewing. Thank you, viewers, and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.